how the fuck did you even get the idea to do what you did? How does this take me through the first like seeds of the thoughts that had you go to the Amazon?
When I was a kid, I remember very far back. I remember being a kid and like going to the Bronx Zoo and looking. They had an exhibit. I think it was in like the House of Reptiles, where there's all these scientists and they're holding like a giant snake and they're doing research and they're protecting these places. And so I always had it in my head that like I want to see these places before they're gone. I grew up with a lot of like environmental stress. I really felt like this message of like we're losing the rainforest, we're losing elephants. I was like, how did you develop that feeling? I don't know. I mean, my parents would, read me Jane Goodall's books as a kid, and again, things like the Bronx Zoo, Steve Irwin. And I grew up, and having access to like New York and New Jersey. I mean, there's such incredible forests there.
It's really the New York, Jersey forest thing. It's like people, for whatever reason, that don't live around there, they think New Jersey is like some vast wasteland. Like Jersey's like more bears per capita than anywhere else in the country.
Yeah. No,
it's wild.
Amazing forest there. I grew up like, and then like by like 13 years old, I was like, I had like a hunting knife and I would do one match and I'd bring my golden retriever into the woods and we'd do like a mini solo 2 nights. And I have to make a fire with that one match. And it's like I was always doing shit like this. Like,
so you always had like a call to that kind of life.
I always just rivers, streams, forests, tracking bears, trying to figure out where the fox's hole is. Like, I liked spending time with animals in nature. And then like it just drove me crazy that no matter how deep I would go, in eastern forests, you always like come out the other side. And I always was just like, I want to find somewhere where it's like truly wild. Like where there's no limit to it. Like what's the max? What's the highest you can turn this thing? And I was terrible in school, failed all my classes, severely dyslexic, all that. And so actually my wonderful parents were like, you do know that you can take a GED, skip the last 2 years of high school and go straight to college. And I was like, I did not know that. So I did that. And then as I was doing that, I just said, you know what? I was like, I'm going to go to the Amazon rainforest. I had a professor that showed me a piece of wood and he made a joke like, oh, this is probably like teak from the Amazon. And like, I was like, oh yeah. Like, I got to get down there before it's too late.
That's what it was.
That is what it was.
I got to get down there before it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they're telling you that there's Jurassic Park. There's literally anaconda dragons in these monster swamps, and there's harpy eagles taking howler monkeys, and there's all this incredible bustling life, and it's all vanishing. And I was like, well, I want to see it before it's gone. Greatest show on earth. Like.
And so how much of an understanding did you have about the Amazon, about how to get around? It seems like you just kind of just dove in.
I did dive in. I found the most remote research station I could find. And, of course, nobody wants to take a 17-year-old kid from Brooklyn, from New Jersey, and put them in the rainforest. I had no qualifications. But I went with people that were doing research on macaws, and I was out there for weeks at a time. But the luck was that I met this guy named JJ, Juan Julio Duran, local Eseja Indian, grew up in the forest barefoot, and met the dude has libraries of information in his brain. Medicinal plants, how to track animals, places in the forest that nobody knows about. And then he was just like, you're funny. You really love this shit. He's like, let's go out all night. We don't come back until we find 3 snakes. He was terrified of snakes. He's like, let's go find 3 snakes, because he was like, why does this gringo keep catching snakes? He's like, what the hell is the matter with you? And so he was teaching me everything, and then I was just like, look, dude, this is how you this is how you do snakes. This is how you figure out if they're venomous. This is how you handle a snake. I could teach him one thing. He taught me the entire Amazon rainforest.
So he didn't know. I mean, he must have known like what venomous snakes there were, right?
No, because what they'll do is they'll be like, oh, that red one, it's venomous. They chop it in half. That's not how you identify a snake. That's like saying like it's like identifying cars by color. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, right.
It's with snakes. You can have like, for example, like an Amazon tree boa. You can have one mother giving birth to like a rainbow of babies. There'll be like gray ones, green ones, yellow ones, like all these different morphs. And so people will be like, oh, those red ones, they'll get you. Those are coral snakes. It's like, no. No, it's a constant battle with, with the locals. I'm always like, do you think this is venomous or not? And they're like, And I'm like, would I be holding it if it was venomous? Oh, yeah, no.
That's crazy that they don't know. But I guess it's like safer to assume that they're all venomous, or anything bright colored is venomous.
Yeah, and again, the jungle is a place where there's a lot of stories. And so like you always hear stories about like who got bitten by a snake and this happened, who got, da-da-da. And so like they have the snake Loro Machaco, which is they know it's a green snake. That's all that like the average logger or the average gold miner knows. I was just like literally 2 weeks ago, I was out in the jungle and I was out and it was raining and there was a loro macaco next to my head with flicking its tongue next to my head. And I was like, oh, cool. I was like, I got to bring this back and show them. So I very carefully caught this viper and brought it back. And they were like, that's not it. That's the boa. And I was like, oh, God. I was like, I can't help you people. I was like, I'm literally showing it to you. The rule is just kill every snake. And so I've always been like this like ambassador for snakes, trying to get people to be like, you know, you have black snakes and gopher snakes and garter snakes and you show them to kids. Snakes are wonderful. Like I love snakes.
They're a part of the whole ecosystem.
They are.
Especially in something as complex as the Amazon.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I lived in the Hollywood Hills, people would always complain about coyotes.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, but how many rats do you see?
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of rats.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. The coyotes are the cleanup system.
Later I got to show you the video I took yesterday, the day before yesterday, a coyote walking through my front yard in New York. In the middle of the day.
They're everywhere now.
They're everywhere.
It's wild.
Big one.
Have you ever read Coyote America?
No.
It's a really good book by this guy, Dan Flores. He's been on the podcast a couple of times. He was my friend Steve's professor in college, and he stayed in touch with this guy, and he's a wildlife historian, and he wrote a book about coyotes. And the story is insane. Like coyotes, they're originally persecuted by the gray wolves. The gray wolves were extirpated and killed off by the people that settled. And then coyotes, when they were persecuted, what they would do is they expand their range.
Yeah.
So they're in every single city in every state now. That's only over the last few decades.
I think in a lot of places you can hunt a coyote like daytime, nighttime, anytime with like any
thing
method.
Is, it does the opposite of what it's intended to do. So when you kill a coyote, then the females, when they do roll call, they realize a coyote's missing, and they have more pups.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a wild animal.
No, it's a really
so
amazing
clever
animal.
too.
Yeah. No, they're crazy. This one comes trotting across my front yard every day, and it's like I opened my front door and I went woo, and he just stopped and looked at me, and I just like took a picture on my phone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
New York City, coyotes. It's an amazing animal.